Anytime you can combine booze and breakfast, that's a good thing. And anytime you can combine bourbon with bacon, that's an even better thing, which is what we're doing today with some bacon-infused bourbon. Yummy. Now, when you think of infusing something, a lot of times you might think of soaking some cooked bacon inside a bottle of bourbon and infusing it that way. But that's not actually the method we're going to use. We're using a method called fat washing. Basically, we're going to be cooking some bacon, using the drippings that come from that bacon to infuse those flavors in. So not only do we get the flavors from the drippings in the bourbon, we get bacon. I mean, this is a win-win-win in so many different ways. And I'm also going to follow up by making a cocktail, a breakfast-themed twist on a Manhattan. So stay tuned for the end of that. But first, let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how I infused bacon into this bottle of Woodford Reserve. First thing you need to do, obviously, is cook some bacon. About a half a pound is enough bacon drippings for a 375 milliliter bottle. These bacon drippings are like liquid gold when it comes to infusing your drink. Once we got the bacon drippings cooled down a little bit, you want to strain those with a fine mesh strainer. Get as many of those little pieces of bacon out of there as you possibly can. So once you've strained out all of that, it's time to add the bourbon. Just pour the entire bottle in there. I used a 375 milliliter because I didn't want to use an entire bottle, but you can always double it if you would like. That's up to you. Then we're going to put the lid on. I shook it to incorporate some of the ingredients, and it's just going to go into the freezer overnight. So I pulled it out of the freezer overnight, and this is what we kind of have. As you can see, it's frozen solid. This layer of fat has built up. It's kind of gross looking, but it's okay because we're going to strain that fat out. So in order to strain it out, I poked a hole through the layer of fat with a butter knife just because it was completely frozen solid, and that helps to strain out. Use the mesh strainer to get the big particles out just through a first run. As you can see by looking at it, there's still a lot of particles in there that we need to filter out. That's where the coffee filter comes in. This process does take a while, so please be patient and don't put all of it in there at once. As you can see, it slowly strains down, and it does clear up the more you do it. I strained mine a total of 3 times, the third time going into the bottle directly, and it looks a lot more clear than when it first came out, as you can obviously see from this. So before I get really into making the cocktail, I do want to try a sip. Just a nice little sip of this bourbon here. Has a nice smell to it. Very light smokiness. Very interesting. You get a little of the mapley smokiness from the bacon, yet you still get some of those toasted caramel notes and everything that you would get from the bourbon. It's a great combination. I think this is going to mix really well in the cocktail that we're going to make. And before I get started, I want you to know I just recently became an influencer over on Amazon. So if you're interested in any of the equipment that I use, whether to film, whether to make the drinks, I do have my own shop over there you can check out. There's some videos reviewing some of this stuff, and I'm going to be adding to that link in the description below. In the end, it helps me produce better content and buy more items to use on the show, and you get an experienced person giving you advice on whether or not it's good. So please check that out if you're interested in buying any kind of equipment. So this drink is actually a riff on something called Breakfast in Manhattan. I got the original recipe come from Difford's guide, but I tweaked it a little because, of course, they didn't call for a infused bourbon. They just called for a regular. So to prep this up, I'm going to start off with an orange, and we're going to garnish with a little piece of orange peel. So I'm going to start just a little peel of orange, little coin. To me, nothing smells better than freshly cut up citrus. I'm just going to clean this because I want a nice little rind to use. Nice little peel. And the remainder of it, we're just going to cut because I need some juice. Juice is on the loose. Now, I don't need a lot, although if this is good, I'll probably make some more. So in order to make this, now that we've got our juice prepped, I'm going to start with a glass. We're going to actually stir this, which is not common for a drink that has juice and everything in it. But hey, it's my drink. I'm stirring it, whether you like it or not. So we're going to have 2 ounces of our infused bourbon. I wanted a drink that was a little heavy on the alcohol because, hey, I'm infusing a bourbon and I want to get some of those flavors out of it. So, 2 ounces. We're going to do a ½ ounce of sweet vermouth. I'm going to do a ½ ounce of orange juice. I prefer freshly squeezed. I'm not going to think any less of you if you don't want to go through that process, because getting a lot of juice out of oranges is a process. And maple syrup. A little goes a long way with maple syrup. I'm only going to use a ½ ounce because we're already getting sweetness from the vermouth and a little bit of sweetness from the orange juice. So I'm hoping that there's enough orange juice in there to cut a little bit of the sweetness. Only a ½ ounce of that. And a couple nice dashes of orange bitters. I'm going to do 4 because normally we put Angostura in a Manhattan, and I'm not doing that. So I'm replacing them with all orange. A scoop of ice inside, and a nice stir. Now all my ingredients are already chilled, so it doesn't need a massive stir, but we do want to make sure we can incorporate that juice and that syrup, because normally we would shake something like this, although I want the clarity just like a Manhattan has. I'll take this and strain it into a coupe glass. Now, because I freshly squeezed mine, there's going to be a little lack of clarity because of pulp and everything that's going in there. If you wanted to use a mesh strainer, you could do that and eliminate that pulp. But I think it's unique. It makes it different. We just want to take express the oils all over this thing. Rub them around the outside, even on the stemware. And just drop it in. And this is Breakfast in Manhattan, my style. Smells nice. Very nice citrusy. Very sweet smelling. That's solid. That's solid. There you can get a little maple, but it's not an overpowering. There is a nice citrusy element to it. But overall, I feel like this drink is pretty well balanced. I like it. Definitely. So that's it for me today. This is the Breakfast in Manhattan cocktail, and I had my bacon infused bourbon to go along with it. If you want to see more drinks like this, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, thanks for watching this. Let's drink.